Carla Danielle exactly how she had left the living room that morning. The curtains were open, her coffee mug was beside the sink, and on the small table near the front door, she had left a framed photograph face down because she still hadn't decided whether to pack it away. At 6:17 that evening, Danielle stepped inside and stopped. The photograph was standing upright. Nothing else looked disturbed. The door had been locked. The windows were closed. Danielle lived alone. And 4 months earlier, after her divorce, she had changed every lock in the house.
Danielle was 40 years old, and for 12 years she had shared that house with her husband, Malcolm. When the divorce became final, she kept the property through their settlement. One of the first things she did afterward was change the locks. For 4 months, the quiet had gone from strange to peaceful. She could leave a cup on the counter and find it exactly where she left it. Until she couldn't.
The first few months after the divorce surprised Danielle. She had expected loneliness. Instead, she discovered how much she enjoyed small decisions nobody commented on. If she wanted dinner at 9, she ate at 9. If she left laundry unfolded overnight, it stayed there until she felt like dealing with it. She moved the reading chair beside the living room window, simply because she preferred it there. One Saturday, Renee Walker came over and looked around. "You changed everything." "Not everything." "The couch moved 3 feet. Renee smiled. "Exactly. Malcolm would have called a committee meeting." Danielle laughed harder than the joke deserved.
That evening, after Renee left, she stood in the kitchen enjoying the silence. Then she reached toward the ceramic bowl beside the refrigerator and paused. She could have sworn she'd left her keys inside it. They were on the counter. Danielle stared for a second, picked them up, and shook her head. Okay, getting old. She went upstairs without thinking about it again. 2 mornings later, she found the mail she dropped beside the front door stacked neatly on the entry table. Danielle looked at the pile, then at the floor where she remembered leaving it. This time, she didn't laugh. The changes remained small enough to be irritating rather than frightening. Danielle left a kitchen cabinet open while rushing to work. When she returned, it was closed. Another evening, a throw pillow was sitting upright on the couch instead of lying against the armrest. Then there was the plant. It sat near the dining room window, half brown and leaning toward the glass. Danielle had already decided to let it die. Renee had teased her about it. "Throw that poor thing away." "I will. You've been saying that for 2 weeks. I've become emotionally attached to watching it die." 3 days later, Danielle came home, set down her purse, and noticed the saucer beneath the pot. There was water in it. She crouched and pressed 2 fingers into the soil. Damp. Danielle stayed there for several seconds. Maybe she'd watered it automatically. Except she remembered standing over that same plant the previous morning and deciding not to bother. That night she checked both doors twice before going upstairs. The following morning, she stood in the kitchen looking at perfectly ordinary objects that suddenly seemed less ordinary. She wasn't ready to accuse anyone. She wasn't even ready to say someone had been inside. But she was finished arguing with her own memory. Before leaving for work the next morning, Danielle slowed down
She placed the television remote diagonally across a magazine. She left one dining chair slightly pulled away from the table. In the kitchen, she turned a blue coffee cup upside down beside the sink. Nothing elaborate. Just 3 things she knew she would remember. At 5:43 that afternoon, Danielle unlocked the front door. The chair was unchanged. The remote was untouched. Then she entered the kitchen. The blue cup was upright. She stopped. For several seconds, she simply looked at it. Then Danielle walked through every room. Nothing was missing. No broken window, no damaged lock, no open door. She called Renee. "Tell me something." "What?" "If somebody came into your house when you weren't there, but didn't take anything, would you still consider that somebody entering your space without permission?" Renee's voice changed immediately. "Somebody came into your house?" "I think so." "You think?" Danielle looked at the blue cup. "No." She swallowed. "I know." Renee told her not to dismiss it just because nothing had been stolen. After the call, Danielle remained in the kitchen. For days, she'd been asking herself whether she was forgetting things. She had her answer now. Someone had entered her house. The only question left was who. Danielle changed her routine over the next several days. She didn't confront anyone, she paid attention. Then, on Thursday afternoon, she got her answer. She had returned earlier than usual, but remained across the street inside her car while finishing a work call. A familiar silver sedan turned onto the block. Danielle recognized it before it stopped. Loretta Carter stepped out, Malcolm's mother. Danielle lowered the phone slightly as her former mother-in-law walked toward the house carrying a small grocery bag. Loretta didn't knock. She didn't hesitate. She opened the front door and walked inside with the casual familiarity of someone who expected to belong there. For a moment, Danielle actually felt relieved. Loretta wasn't a stranger. Then, another thought pushed the relief aside. The locks. Danielle remembered standing beside the locksmith 4 months earlier. Malcolm had already moved out. The old keys had been made useless. Yet Loretta had just opened the door without forcing anything. Danielle remained behind the wheel. About 10 minutes later, Loretta came out carrying the now empty grocery bag. She drove away without ever noticing Danielle across the street. Danielle looked at her house. She knew who had been entering. But the answer had created a bigger problem. Loretta wasn't supposed to have a working key. Danielle waited until Loretta disappeared around the corner before crossing the street. Inside the kitchen, she found a container of soup on the counter. A handwritten note rested beside it. "Thought you might need something homemade." Danielle stared at the familiar handwriting. There had been a time when a gesture like that would have made her smile. Now she looked toward the front door. The following morning, she confirmed with the locksmith that the old keys could not work with the replacement locks. Danielle already knew that. She needed to hear it anyway. Then she called Malcolm. "Hey," he said. "Everything okay?" "I need to ask you something." "Sure." "Does your mother have a key to my house?" Silence. "Not long. Long enough." "Why?" Danielle closed her eyes. "That's not an answer." Malcolm exhaled. "She might." "Might?" "I gave her one." Danielle looked toward the door. "After the locks were changed?" Another pause. "Yes." Her grip tightened around the phone. This wasn't an old key everyone had forgotten about. Loretta's access had been deliberately restored after the divorce. Why would you do that? Danielle, it's not what you're making it sound like. She hadn't told him what she thought it sounded like. And now, she wanted to hear his explanation.
Malcolm came over that evening. Loretta arrived 20 minutes later. Danielle remained standing while they sat in the living room. Malcolm spoke first. My mother checks on things sometimes. What things? The house, plants, mail if you're away. I never asked her to. Loretta leaned forward. Danielle, sweetheart, I've been helping you for years. During my marriage. Loretta's expression changed. So 12 years means nothing now? I didn't say that. Loretta began listing things she'd done over the years. Meals after long work days, rides when Danielle's car was being repaired, help when Danielle once had the flu. None of it was invented. That made the conversation harder, not easier. Malcolm rubbed his palms together. I gave her access because I didn't think you'd make an issue out of it. You didn't think I'd care that somebody could enter my house without telling me? It's my mother, Danielle. Danielle looked at him. She'd expected an apology followed by an awkward conversation about boundaries. Instead, both of them seemed to believe the identity of the person entering should settle the question. Danielle nodded once. Give me the key. Loretta blinked. Seriously? Yes. After everything I've done for you? Danielle kept her voice level. Loretta, the key. Malcolm sighed. Come on, Danny. She looked at him. I'm not debating this. Notice what Malcolm used as his defense? Not permission, but relationship. In his mind, it's my mother was supposed to answer a question Danielle had never agreed to stop asking. Loretta eventually placed the key on the coffee table. She did it slowly, with the wounded expression of someone surrendering something she believed had been unfairly taken from her. Danielle picked it up. The next day, she had the access changed again. When the work was finished, she closed the front door and rested her palm against it. For the first time in weeks, she exhaled fully. Renee came over that evening. So, it's done? It's done. And Malcolm thinks I'm overreacting. Loretta thinks I'm ungrateful. Renee studied her. And what do you think? Danielle gave a tired smile. I think I'm exhausted from explaining why I don't want people letting themselves into my house. For several days, nothing moved. The plant stayed exactly as Danielle left it. Her mail remained untouched. The house slowly began to feel normal again. Still, something bothered her. Malcolm had deliberately restored Loretta's access after the divorce. He knew Danielle had changed the locks. He knew the house no longer belonged to both of them. Calling it help explained why Loretta might water a plant or bring soup. It did not explain why Malcolm had decided, without asking, that she should still be able to walk through Danielle's door. Malcolm apparently believed time would settle the disagreement. His first message was light. Mom feels terrible. I hope we can all move past this. Loretta called 2 days later. Danielle answered. I don't want us ending like strangers, she said. We don't have to be strangers? Then why are you treating me like one? Danielle looked out the kitchen window. Not having a key to my house doesn't make you a stranger. Loretta went quiet. The distinction seemed to offend her. Malcolm tried again that weekend. He said Danielle was turning an otherwise respectful divorce into something ugly. Danielle let him talk. Then he said, almost casually, nobody was judging what you were doing over there. Danielle frowned. Over where? At the house. You've changed things. You're going out more. That's fine. Danielle sat straighter. How do you know I'm going out more? Malcolm hesitated. I mean, I assume you are. No, you didn't.
Danielle, how do you know? His tone sharpened. Why does every conversation have to become an interrogation? Danielle didn't answer. After the call, she sat on the edge of her bed with the phone still in her hand. The locks were secure. Yet Malcolm had just told her something far more unsettling. He knew things about her life she had never told him.
Danielle began replaying old conversations. A month earlier, Malcolm had mentioned that she'd finally moved the reading chair. She'd assumed Renee said something. Renee hadn't. Loretta had once asked whether Danielle liked having company over again. At the time, Danielle heard it as general conversation. Now she remembered the extra coffee mug beside the sink after Renee visited. She walked slowly through the house. The entry table, the mail, the living room, the kitchen. All the ordinary details Loretta could have seen while walking through rooms Danielle believed were private. Danielle called Renee. Did you ever tell Malcolm I moved the chair? No. Did you mention anything to Loretta about me going out on me going out? No. Why? Danielle looked toward the window. I think she was telling him things. Renee paused. What things? I don't know. That was the problem. Danielle had treated Loretta's visits as unwanted housekeeping. Now Malcolm's comments suggested something else had been leaving the house with her. Information. Danielle resisted the urge to call him immediately. During their marriage, she had often rushed to explain herself before she'd even decided what she thought. This time, she waited. When Malcolm contacted her again, Danielle did something different. She listened. Malcolm came over Sunday afternoon. Loretta came with him. Danielle let them talk. Loretta defended herself first. I never went through your things. I didn't say you did. I watered plants. I brought food. If mail was lying around, I moved it somewhere safe. Malcolm nodded. Exactly. Nobody was sitting around caring who you were seeing or where you were going. Danielle looked at him. I never said anybody cared. He stopped. Loretta glanced toward him. Danielle waited. Malcolm shifted in his chair. I just mean, Mom might mention something. You weren't home. There was a car outside. Normal conversation. What car? Danielle, don't do this. What car, Malcolm? Loretta answered before he could. There was a blue car there a couple of times. Danielle almost laughed. The car belonged to Renee's brother, who had helped her move a bookcase. But who owned it wasn't the point. You were discussing cars outside my house? Loretta frowned. It wasn't like that. Then came other details. The furniture she'd moved. Weekends she hadn't been home. Changes around the house. Each explanation was meant to make the last one sound harmless.
Danielle barely spoke. For once, she didn't need to force an admission. Malcolm and Loretta were filling the silence themselves. And with every sentence, the original explanation, she was only helping, became harder to believe.
Loretta left first. Malcolm remained behind. For a while, neither of them spoke. Finally, Danielle asked, "Why did you need to know?" "I didn't need to." "Then why did you keep talking to her about me?" "I wasn't asking her to spy on you. I didn't say you were." Malcolm looked away. Danielle waited. He rubbed his palms together, the same nervous habit he'd had during difficult conversations throughout their marriage. "I wanted to know you were okay." "You could have called me." "You don't tell me anything anymore." Danielle stared at him. "We're divorced." "I know." "Do you?" His jaw tightened. "I spent 12 years knowing what was happening in your life, and suddenly I know nothing. I don't know if you're home. I don't know if you're seeing somebody. I don't know if..." He stopped himself. Danielle didn't interrupt. For months, she thought Malcolm had adjusted to the divorce better than she had. He had moved out, signed the papers, built a separate routine. But listening to him now, Danielle understood what he had not surrendered. Access. He no longer lived with her, yet some part of him still expected to know what happened after her front door closed. The key had given him a window into that life. Loretta had kept the window open. "You wanted the divorce," Danielle said quietly. Malcolm looked at her. "I know." "Then you have to let it be real." Malcolm still tried to explain. He wasn't trying to control her. Loretta meant well. Nobody stole anything. Danielle listened until she realized they had returned to the same conversation she'd been having from the beginning. Their intentions, their reasons, their belief that she was interpreting everything too harshly. She stood. "Malcolm, I'm not asking you to agree anymore." He frowned. "Agree with what?" "With my boundary." "Danielle, your mother doesn't enter this house. You don't get updates about who visits me, where I go, or what I change in here. If I want you to know something, I'll tell you." "You're making this sound like..." "No." She shook her head. "I'm telling you how it's going to be." Loretta called later. Danielle gave her the same answer without revisiting 12 years of family history. There was one final conversation at the house. Malcolm and Loretta stood outside the front door. Danielle remained inside. She wasn't smiling when she closed it. She wasn't angry either. The latch clicked softly. Danielle stood there for a moment before walking back into the living room. On the entry table, the photograph was exactly where she had left it. She looked at it, then kept walking. This time, she left it standing. Over the next few weeks, Danielle noticed something she hadn't expected. Nothing happened. Her mail stayed where she placed it. The plant eventually died because she forgot to water it, and somehow that made her laugh. The house became ordinary again. More importantly, Danielle stopped rehearsing explanations for Malcolm and Loretta in her head. Privacy wasn't punishment, and a boundary wasn't an argument she had to win. Some doors close because relationships end. Others close because access does.
Danielle had spent months changing locks. Peace arrived when she understood she never needed anyone else's permission to keep the door closed.
I'm curious where you drew the line in this one. Was it when Loretta used the key? Or when Danielle realized Malcolm was still getting pieces of her private life? Tell me the moment that changed the story for you. And if you'd like another story from Tales by Akanji, I'll meet you in the next one.